Hey everybody, it's Tuesday. Brief announcement before I get into the topic today. Twitch tonight will be delayed until 8 o'clock. I got a last minute message from the guy I lecture for at Sheridan. And he's like, can you come in last minute? So it's like, I'm doing it again. They like me. So yeah, I will be later tonight. Already can't tell which day of the week it is. Great. But I'll be later tonight because of that. And in the meantime, we're going to talk about decision making as a continuing journey back to go forward from the stuff that stayed with me last week. So this is a continuation of Monday's video in a way. And it's interesting because I have to do a bit of feedback because it kind of ties in. Oron Darklord, who I reference a lot because he's a really great commenter, basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, I wish services like Facebook would just make up their minds what kind of service they want to have and stop trying to have it both ways so that I know, how to stay on the right side of the rules. And that he said it in a much more sort of clever way than that. But that to me is one of these things that makes gamers sort of, it provides a sort of glue in our community. Is you can only be considered good at a game if you play by the rules of the game. There's a big difference between maximizing the return on the rules, which is, figuring out how to play the game well, and outright cheating. And gamers don't like cheating. And I think that's one of the big frustrations with what's going on in the larger world right now, is that it seems like everybody's cheating and you really can't play the larger sort of life game unless you cheat. And that's causing a lot of consternation for gamers right now. And I'm just making sure, okay, the dog is lying down and not trying to poop on my carpet. Yes, this is what you get when you name a dog Loki. Okay. Speaking of not obeying rules, dog. I'm going to grossly oversimplify right now for brevity. So the people that love to overuse the word disingenuous, I'm not being disingenuous here because I am stating I am oversimplifying. Look up what the word means. But just my pet peeve right now, drives me crazy when people overuse the word disingenuous. It has a very specific meaning. But there's, of the many ways people can make choices, the sort of study this stuff specifies that a lot of the times decision making isn't right versus wrong, right? It's not the way comic books set it up. What? I know. But it's actually right versus right thinking. Like, the climate change debate up here. Cutting down on our carbon footprint to prevent climate change is virtuous, but making sure that middle-class families in Alberta continue to have jobs is also virtuous. So it's not right versus wrong, it's right versus right. You have to find a way to square your conscience, which is why leadership is hard. And what the culture war does is turns every dilemma into a right versus wrong. We have to save the planet, so screw the workers in Alberta. Or we have to preserve jobs in the economy. It's not our responsibility to save the planet. That's for the scientific community. That's what the culture war does to decision making. And I would love to see that explored in video games somehow. Certain games do it well. BioWare used to do it well. the Far Cry games are almost like wrong versus wrong choices instead of right versus right, which is why I love that game series. I still haven't played the most recent one. I've been that busy. But, everybody's sort of, the choices you have to make are sort of creepy no matter what you do because you're doing, video game tourism in failed states. So I find those moral choices very interesting. Grand Theft Auto does that to an extent. What crimes can you live with? I've talked about that before, but I really think there's more to be done in this paradigm of choice. Granted, that takes not only excellent game design skills to make choices feel right, and getting out of this rudimentary, results-based choice versus moral choice thinking that game developers love to go back and forth on, and really get into more nuanced choice mechanics. In that, in life, there often are not simple right and wrongs, because even in interpersonal stuff, being honest is a virtue, right? But being kind is also a virtue. So what do you do when you'd like to say something to someone that is honest but is likely to hurt their feelings? Many different people make different choices there. I got into this myself. Normally, I'll say it as nicely as possible. I'll be as kind as possible, but I will side with truth because I think in the long term, that's kind. Well, I got in a lot of trouble for doing that. So I tried it the other way and just don't say anything. Just suck it up, err on the side of kindness instead of truth. Well, of course, I ended up venting to someone who then went and told the person anyway. So, I looked vaguely backstabby as well as, and it probably still hurt them. So both things I was trying to achieve, or both rights, were not achieved because it's really not kind. So I listened to criticism. I adapted. I shouldn't have listened to the criticism. Own the mistake, right? And that's the other thing that makes things very difficult, makes choice very difficult in the real world. Unlike a video game, and I wonder if there's ways of doing this in game mechanics. Again, some games do. There's always a faction who hates your guts based on the choices you make in games like this sort of thing. But unlike in more reward-based video games that, the whole purpose of the game is for you to be kind of, lauded as a hero at the end. That's the whole point. You get to be a hero. The real world isn't like that. No matter what choice you make as a leader, people pounce to criticize. And the more of a profile I get, the more I am challenged to know what criticism I should listen to and what criticism to go, I appreciate someone being honest with me, but this isn't right for me. And what I thought is, well, the closer someone is to me, the more they're likely to have my best interests at heart. Those are the people I should listen to first. I've found out, based on the example that I just gave you guys, that's not always the right way to go. Just because somebody cares about you doesn't mean they understand everything about you. And, sometimes the people closest to you are the most unnecessarily critical of you. And it's really impossible until you screw up enough times to know that. You have to learn by doing. And so we have difficult moral choices because of the right versus right or wrong versus wrong versus right versus wrong. A right versus wrong choice is easy, right? Right versus right choices and wrong versus wrong choices, the fabled Kobayashi Maru idea, how do you want to fail? Those are much more difficult. Add to that withering criticism no matter what choice you make if you're at all public. And that means these days on social media in any really participatory way. And then there's one other element to add to that, which is the really unforgiving nature of the public discourse. The fact that we live in a world that rewards people who are open scumbags because people who try to be good and people who strive to be good and have identities as, essentially good people are not perfect, and therefore the good people reject them the minute they make a high-profile mistake. And that is a real problem in gaming because it's so opposite to why people like video games, right? In video games, you play, you suck. You play, you suck. You play, you suck a little less. You fail a little less. You fail and you fail and you fail and you fail. And eventually you succeed. And then you move on to the next set of repetitive failures, right? It's learned by doing. It's learning from your mistakes. This is what our brains like, right? But in the real world, it's often not like that. You made a mistake, you're bad, get out, right? There are certain kinds of mistakes that are seen, or certain mistakes made by certain people are seen as acceptable. Others are considered unpardonable. And there doesn't really seem to be any clarity about where those lines are. Like Oron said about Facebook, I just want to know the rules so I can follow them, right? You're asking people to make moral choices when they don't understand the morality of the given society. And a lot of people are walking around very afraid based on this. A lot of people are walking around either terrified of making a mistake or not terribly interested in working very hard to be moral and virtuous because they think it's impossible to ever be moral or virtuous enough. And that has a profoundly negative impact on a given culture. And like that's a big reason why I think that these, cartoonishly corrupt populist politicians are having a moment right now. Because I'm going to draw on the U.S. just because it's neutral and I don't know what the election results are in Canada yet. I'm recording this before the results are in. But Trump can do whatever scumbaggy thing he wants, and it doesn't violate his brand. It doesn't change the way everybody thinks of him, because you either think Trump is a corrupt liar and you think all politicians are liars, therefore what's the difference? He's honest about being a liar. Or it's, I know he's a corrupt scumbag liar, but he's doing the things in government I think need to be done. So, with a side of, and all politicians are liars. Or, you're never going to like Trump no matter what. So he doesn't have to bother to convince or persuade you because it's not possible. And, then that return on investment principle kicks in and his whole game is, his whole strategy, because elections are games. There is game theory. There are pass-fail, win-loss conditions. He campaigns, as Doug Ford did up in Canada, as Andrew Scheer did up here in Canada, on maximizing enthusiasm in turnout in the base. Persuading undecideds is, if you want to come along, that's fine. But the primary strategy to victory is suppress your opposition vote with dirt, just scum up the whole thing and turn out your base. Now, that scum up the whole thing is where progressivism tends to fail, because progressivism likes to elect saints instead of politicians. And politics is the right versus right, wrong versus wrong series of choices, meaning if you make the right decision, everybody will be upset with you because you gave both rights some attention instead of giving one right all the attention and the other one none. If you're actually, if you're actually trying to maximize your enthusiasm, you just, it's like filling out an internet survey. If you don't hit 1 or a 5, a lot of companies just don't care about the 2s, 3s, and 4s. I'm not kidding. The citizenry, the electorate has become the same way. That unless you are 100% on their side, a 5, you are a 1. And this is why re-election campaigns are so hard, especially for progressive politicians, but also in a different way for conservative politicians, especially in the US, because the thing that Republicans are most afraid of is not a general election, it's their primaries. So if they don't have that, modern day conservative social virtues, they're going to get primaried, and they're probably going to lose because their opponent has never had to make any decisions yet. And when we come to gaming, this has left a lot of people very jaded, and very confused, and quite frankly, very scared and feeling very wounded, because one of the things that gamers sort of as a people, if you will, like I said, are sort of conditioned to do because we play video games is we try something, we make a mistake, we are given feedback about that mistake, we try it again, eventually we get it right, we get feedback because we got it right. This is the systemized way our brains work. If you then try to navigate a social situation where you are supposed to somehow know what the right thing is to do before you do it, and you're not a learn by observing person, you're a learn by doing person, you don't get to learn the way that works for you. And I mean, there is an element of education at play here, educational systems, because now they don't fail kids on anything. So they don't learn how to fail and learn again. But it's also like we are creating a culture of inaction, that the only winning move is not to play. The only safe way to socialize is to not socialize at all, or socialize as, an anonymous persona or a pseudonym persona, an online avatar, that if things get too bad, you can dump and start again. Life has become a roguelike. You have to die and start all over again the minute you make a critical mistake. There's no saves. And people can't build based on that. And that's one of the big levers behind, income inequality and the rich getting richer while everybody else is falling further behind, because the rich have save points. The rich are only going to fall so far, whereas everybody else, you lose your business, you have to start again from nothing. You don't have rich relatives to bail you out, or, if you're super privileged, the banks bail you out. The banks forgive your debt. In order for society to move forward, and right now the gaming culture is the only thing I really care about at the moment, but I do care about, larger society as a whole. In order for any culture to move forward, people need those save points. And that's done through compassion and forgiveness and clear rules, because you want to minimize the number of save points a person needs. Like, survival horror games where, remember the days of the save tapes on Resident Evil? The thing that was cool about Resident Evil is the design of the levels warned you, like, this is a hallway. It looks creepy. There's our windows. Something's likely going to jump out at you. Don't be dumb, right? It gives you a warning because you only have so many saves. And, Resident Evil back in the day, it gave you something for, completing the game without dying. I kind of miss those. But now people only play games through once because they're 60 hours long in one playthrough. But, that's why people want to know the rules before they start, right? And those rules are the things that are constantly changing and nowhere near as solid as they used to be in society. And so everybody's locked up. Everybody's afraid to try. And then there's me, who I take calculated risks, but I take risks, I think, because I'm a gamer and a comedian. God help me. And I'm female, which I fully admit gives me more passes on certain things and fewer in others. I don't have a problem saying that, because it's not that women have it better. We just have it different. And so I'll close with a story from me voting today. It was crowded in the polling station, which is always a good sign. Warm my little heart. But the guy behind me accidentally, as he was turning, he kind of it felt more like sort of a close fist like this, but he touched my butt. And I could tell he was really embarrassed and kind of nervous about that. And I had compassion for him. We're back to this theme. I could tell he was embarrassed. And I had compassion for him. And even though it was kind of embarrassing for both of us, it was clearly an accident. And I said, "Oh, it's crowded in here." And he said, "Oh, I really crowded you there." He's admitting to it. And I said, "Totally accidentally, I'm sure." And you saw the guy go with just relief. 'Cause somebody else could have gone full social justice warrior on him. Assault, could have. 'Cause technically it was. But it was clearly an accident caused by a crowded space and a lot going on, and kind of like, it was a badly organized room, so lines were cutting across each other, and it's very easy for someone, especially someone who's sort of awkward physically, to turn and kind of do that. So I chose to be compassionate, and I chose to give someone benefit of the doubt. And I guarantee you, the next time he's near a woman in line, he's going to leave a lot more personal space. But it was a mistake that he could learn from. Baby steps. Instead of getting completely knocked back, right? And I think we need more of that as people who care about, like, you guys know I care very much about legit harassment and, legit assault and all that stuff. I don't want to cheapen it by things that were clearly accidents. But I know people who just didn't know. And I've gotten more than a few stories of guys who have been accused of harassment or assault for much less. No physical contact stuff that's going online. And this is coming to what I've been mulling over all week. But that's going to be the next video. And I forgot to do the shilling. Forgive me. Patreon. You should become a member. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Thanks for watching.